Hello, everybody. It's Kevin again. Yay! I know everybody loves hearing from Kevin, all 7 of my subscribers. But I'm up to 7 now instead of 5. Makes me feel good. Anyway, so let's go over this whole Mueller press conference thing. Couple problems I have with it. And with the report itself. And I'll make my point, and you can argue if you want. There are comment sections below. Use them if you feel like it. He was correct in saying one thing, that the Department of Justice and prosecutors aren't the ones responsible for holding the president accountable. That's the responsibility of Congress. Now, under that same ruling, does say that the president can be investigated. But he can't be charged. And what he said basically in that thing was, they didn't make a determination because it's not fair to make a determination about charging somebody if they can't be held accountable in a court of law. And at the same time, they couldn't, if they had found evidence that the president didn't commit a crime, they would have said so, which is kind of wrong within itself, because a prosecutor's job is to find evidence of the crime and prosecute, or not prosecute. If there's no evidence of crime, no prosecutor in history, except for James Comey, has gone out and said, we're not prosecuting, but here's some bad-looking stuff. The government's not supposed to go out and talk bad about people when you can't charge them with a crime. Well, we're not charging a person with a crime because we can't prove they committed a crime. But we're just going to make sure everybody knows they're a really bad person. That's not something the government does. So in the way they wrote this report, it was kind of against our justice system. It's kind of like, that's saying guilty until proven innocent. I'm not giving you a trial, but we're going to come out and say you did something wrong. We don't have a country where somebody is guilty until proven innocent. They might not be guilty in fact they're going to court or to jail or face consequences of being guilty. But in America, we don't call people guilty and you have to prove yourself innocent. The media does it, but the government should not do that. Argue that. Secondly, some of the problems with this is, in the report, he pointed out the reasons that, using Trump's words against him supposedly, about firing Comey. The problem is, with that, and go back, I know everybody hates this whole Russia thing. Russia did bad things. Russia. For instance, if the Department of Justice was investigating Hillary Clinton and Trump found out about it and said, look, if you as William Barr, even if it was back when, before Barr came in, what's his name was in there, and it was said, look, Trump has the right, as under his constitutional powers, he is the chief law enforcement officer, to go in there and say, look, it'll look real political if we do that. It looks petty. It wasn't murder or whatever. I'm going to choose not to continue this investigation. He has the right to stop any investigation he wants to as being president. And ergo, considering Comey first opened up a counterintelligence investigation into Russia, and I don't have fancy, actually I do have fancy video editing equipment. I just try to use it and can't. So I'm going to do a really, really bad thing here, or cheesy thing here. Look at that top one. It says, Comey explains why he told Trump he wasn't personally under investigation. James Comey. The president was not under investigation. There were 3 instances that came out in all the little hearings and stuff, and he testified that he told Trump on 3 separate occasions Trump was not a target of the investigation. Why is that important? Because at that point, the investigation wasn't whether Trump did anything wrong. If he would have fired Comey to stop the Russia investigation, it would have been no different if he would fired Comey to stop an investigation into Hillary Clinton or anybody else the president has a right to stop an investigation for. Now, I don't think, even if they were investigating Trump in that, he still has a right constitutionally to fire Comey for any reason he wants, including they're investigating him. That's not obstruction of justice. He chooses, for better or for worse, what justice is. You can't hold somebody under obstruction of justice when they have the right to decide what justice is. We have a mechanism if the president does something wrong. If he would have colluded with Russia and he would have stopped any investigation into that, Congress can do an investigation and give that. But Congress can't, they can impeach him for any reason they want to. Impeachment is a political process. But it's not a crime, it's not obstruction of justice for him to fire and stop any investigation. It might look bad politically. They might not get votes in the next election. But you can't hold the president accountable for obstruction of justice for that. Now, if he suborned perjury and told somebody to lie to investigators, that might be considered obstruction of justice. But the only thing they're alleging is that he tried to stop investigations. Again, if it had been into Russia as a counterintelligence operation, Russia, he might say, you know what? We understand they did that. You don't need an investigation to say that. We're wasting money. We just need to stop them next time. We're not going to be able to charge anybody and put them on trial because they're not going to be expedited to the U.S. from Russia. So this whole thing is a damn waste. Everybody knows Russia interfered in our elections. What is the point of the investigation? To tell us something we already know? I don't want to waste the money and time on doing that. I'm stopping the investigation. His right to do so. He is the chief law enforcement officer in this country. That is his constitutional right, and you can't charge him with obstruction of justice for doing something he has the right to do, whether it be into any investigation. Enron, if he wanted to. It is not obstruction of justice. Again, under our Constitution, the founders really put in their impeachment upon high crimes and misdemeanors. If they're not committing a crime, although it is a political process, and if the Congress were willing to get together and say, well, he didn't commit a crime because he has the legal right to do what he did, but we really don't like it and we're going to impeach him because of it, they can try it. They might be able to, go to the Supreme Court about the Constitution of it, didn't commit a high crime or misdemeanor. They can try it, fine. But you cannot charge the president with obstruction of justice when he decides and has the legal right, the constitutional right, embedded in the president of the United States to carry out an investigation whether or not Russia interfered with our election or not. We know they did. And Comey told him on 3 different occasions he wasn't a target of an investigation of this counterintelligence. So he wasn't stopping the investigation by firing Comey into him. He wasn't even trying to stop the investigation at that because the investigation still went on. So appointing a special counsel because he tried to fire Comey to find out about Russian interference. Now we go back to the whole point of collusion. So the president knows he didn't collude. Now you got to prove intent. They trying to stop the investigation because he intended to stop them from finding out who colluded, but he didn't collude. The investigation continued to its end, and there was no collusion. So obviously there was no intent of him getting found out that he colluded. So you can't say that either. In any adjudication of the president, it has to come from Congress. Congressional investigations and the impeachment proceeding is a way to hold the president accountable. But you can't go back and say we're going to impeach you because you impeded an investigation, that you have the right to say whether or not you want that investigation or not. You can say, we wanted that investigation. We would have liked to have seen it. We're going to impeach you because it's a purely political thing. You didn't commit a high crime or misdemeanor. Then they can face their political, retribution of the voters if they decide to go down that route. But it's not a high crime or misdemeanor. He has the constitutional right to stop any investigation he wants. Again, you can say if he's under investigation, but it's not the Justice Department, as as Mueller said in his statement today. It is not his point to say whether or not, because he can't bring about a court hearing, he cannot make a decision on whether or not to charge the president or not. He didn't even go in to weigh the evidence, apparently, to say, is this a crime or not a crime? He just said, we can't make that determination, so we didn't go there. He also said we couldn't exonerate him from it, but that was unnecessary, because prosecutors' jobs to charge or not to charge, not to go out and make statements about how bad a person is. They're guilty even though they have to prove themselves innocent. The whole point of that is just wrong. So if the Democrats really would have wanted an investigation into whether or not the president colluded with Russia, the House, the Senate both have done investigations. Both came back with no. Comey did an investigation, counterintelligence, couldn't find anything wrong. And after all that, the Mueller's one we're having a problem with. There were 3 other investigations. None of them found any inclusion. You can't charge the president with obstruction. He has the right to stop any investigation he wants. It's not the DOJ's job to find wrongdoing in the president. It's Congress's. Therefore, the president has the right to stop those investigations. They can't charge him. They don't even make a decision on whether or not to charge him or not. Ergo, he can stop the investigation legally. And that's kind of the point. That's described a lot more simpler, the point that Alan Dershowitz makes. You can't charge the president with obstruction because he has the right to control the investigation. It's his subordinates are ones doing the investigation. He has the right to step down there and say whatever he wants to say to them. Don't do the investigation. Don't do this. Don't do that. It's good to be king. We don't have kings. But, so what basically Mueller came out today was tried to say, I'm saying kind of to an extent that I think the president did something wrong, but I couldn't make that decision. So I'm going to leave it at that so he can go out there now and try and prove himself innocent. That is not America. Mr. Mueller, that is not America. That was an American. That was wrong. You don't go out and smear somebody in public as a government employee, as a prosecutor, that you are not charging. Period. It's unprofessional. It's fascist to an extent, because that's part of what we are in America is you're innocent until proven guilty. Comey did it too with Clinton. Well, he was just trying to cover the fact that everybody knew she committed crimes, but we're not going to charge her because she's a Democrat, and Barack Obama's in office, and he won't let us charge a major Democrat with a crime because we're fascist. And that's what America's come to now. This is, over the past 6 years, this has happened on several occasions, and it's not America, and it's wrong.